So a data frame will tie together a list and vectors. A data frame is simply a list of vectors. So we can create a data frame using the data.frame function. And here I have a vector, another vector, and another vector of numeric values, character values, and logical values, and I'm giving them names X, Y, and Z. So if I run this code here, output what was there, we see a data frame returns as rows and columns. And so a data frame finally ties everything together, and we now have rows, which are observations, and columns, which are variables. So we said that a data frame is a list of vectors. So we could rerun this code here, but make it a list instead. But this sort of loses the rows and columns, observations, and variable structure. So that's why we use a data frame. It'll be sort of what we think of as a data matrix, but unlike an actual matrix in R, it will not be required to have all of the same data type. By giving it different vectors, we can use different data types inside those vectors, which will be necessary for data analysis. Because a data frame is a list of vectors, we can extract a particular vector like we would in a list using the $sign operator. So we see here we're extracting the X vector from the data frame example data. And just to quickly verify, we see here that all of these vectors are of the same length. And that's basically a requirement because, again, we need observations and variables, rows, and columns. So we need to have vectors of the same length. When we have a data frame, we'll often want to look at the structure using the str function. It tells us this is a data frame. It has 10 observations of 3 variables, and it shows us what those vectors are. We might notice that, well, up here, it looks like this vector is numeric, but here we're calling it a factor variable. We'll come back and touch on that in a moment. So we could directly extract some of this structure information, for example, the number of rows or the number of observations, the number of columns or the number of variables, or we could get both of those together.